Hello everyone, it is Jazz here. Today I am doing the end of year book superlative tag. This tag was created by a book olive. I will link you to her video in the description. I did this book tag last year in 2016 and I really loved how it showed such a fun spectrum of the kinds of books that you read over the year. So I decided to do it every year since. So this is the 2017 version. I do have multiple answers for some of these questions this year for some reason, so sorry for that. I couldn't make a decision, but let's go on with the show. Question 1, most likely to be in the movies, the book that would make the best movie. So I picked one that I thought would make the best movie and also one that I thought would make a really cool TV show. For the movie, I decided to go with Night Film. Obviously, it does center around cinema in general, and so I think that is one reason why it would lend itself really well to being a movie. But also, it's very cinematic in the way that it's written. It's also a psychological thriller, so if you could find somebody that could kind of do like a modern Hitchcock spin kind of thing, I think this would really be a cool movie. The book that I think would make a super cool TV show, though, is Otherland, City of Gold and Shadow, which is the first book in the Otherland series. This is a really cool sci-fi with virtual reality involved quite a bit in the story and a lot of really cool world building and a bunch of really interesting characters. And so I think this would really be a super cool TV show. I wouldn't want it to be a movie because I think there's too much there to like really make a good like 2-hour film. But if it was done as a TV show, I would be down for that. Number 2, the biggest drama, king or queen, the book that was the most overly dramatic, or also you can use a character for this. I decided to go with book this year. I have a couple of books here. First one is The Three Musketeers. This was melodramatic, but aware of its melodrama. Like, it's almost kind of making fun of the fact that there's like wacky amounts of insta-love and just really kind of like, my gosh, I cannot take it. How will we survive? Kind of like dialogue in it, and also just like the situations that the characters get into in terms of the musketeers are very melodramatic, but it like knows that it's melodramatic. As an honorable mention, I do feel like I should say also The 1000th Floor, because when you combine science fiction with wealthy and super poor teenagers and people with substance abuse problems and secrets, you are bound to have a lot of trauma going on. And if there was ever a book that should be a CW teen drama, I think this should be one, but it was still a fun read. Number 3 is Best Dressed, the book with the best cover. I reread To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee in this fabulous Barnes & Noble edition. So obviously the font, the wonderful tree that Scout is under in silhouette is just fabulous. It also has gilded pages. It has a super cool silhouette on the back of Scout, Atticus, and Jim holding hands, which I just think is lovely. Number 4, most creative, the book with the most unique plot, structure, or characters. So I decided to go with Stephen King's Lisey's story. It combines so many genres. It's a love story, but it is also a really dark thriller and a fantasy and a little bit of horror mixed in there. It does bend a lot of genres, but also it jumps through worlds and time quite a bit. So of course the structure is going to be really interesting just in terms of the way that Stephen King kind of planned that out, and it's very cool to read. Number 5, most popular, the book with the most ratings on Goodreads. I'm just gonna assume that it was A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. Number 6, most likely to succeed, the book that will be appreciated for many years to come. I picked 5 because I loved a lot of books this year, and a lot of them will be longtime favorites, and there were probably more than 5, but these are the ones that I'm going to mention in this video. First one I want to mention is Thrilla of Ingleside, which is the 8th book in the Anne of Green Gables series. I'm so glad that I finally finished this series because I would have never gotten to read this book if I hadn't, and it is just so flipping good. Next one was Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim by Robert C. O'Brien. This was a joy. It was surprisingly sci-fi and of course had talking animals, which is my jam. Speaking of talking animals, another one with talking animals that was my jam was The Cricket in Times Square. This book was just the cutest bomb thing, and I love unlikely animal friendships, which is definitely featured, and it's just short and quick and makes you feel good. And of course, I really loved The Book Thief. I also could have chosen this for something that had a really unique writing structure because it is narrated by Death, and I thought that was super cool. But also, I really just loved the story and how the characters interacted with each other and all the wonderful history lessons that you got from the book. It was just fabulous. And then lastly, I decided to go with Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is the third book in the Infernal Devices series, and I just felt all the feels. Did not think it was gonna make me cry, but this thing definitely made me cry, and I definitely ended up loving the characters even more through reading this final book. So it was a super fun, fast read. Number 7, Class Clown, the book that made you laugh. Now, I did read a couple books that were intentionally supposed to be funny, but I decided to go with a book that was unintentionally super funny and go with Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. This book is a collection of more literarily written Norse mythology stories, and there are some that are just a super kick. The one with Freya's wedding where Thor is dressed up as a bride and Loki goes disguised as his handmaiden. Oh my gosh, I died. I was laughing so hard. But there were plenty of other really amusing moments because of the way Neil kind of set up the dialogue for these Norse mythology characters, and it was a good old time. Number 8, Most Improved, a book that started off slow but picked up in the end. Decided to go with the second Otherland book, River of Blue Fire. I want to say that none of this was actually slow in the traditional sense of the word. Everything that was happening was exciting when it was happening. I just didn't know exactly how the events were supposed to connect together, and it made me a little nervous. And it wasn't till the end when I finished it and I was like, oh my gosh, Tad Williams, you're a genius. How did you even put this together? Because everything suddenly is clicking for me. So I would say that my love for this book was slow coming. It took me a second to realize how much I was enjoying it. Number 9, Cutest Couple, the cutest couple in a book. So I did read several books in the Anne of Green Gables series featuring my favorite ship, Anne and Gilbert, and I particularly loved Anne and Gilbert in Anne's House of Dreams because it is my favorite one to reread in terms of Anne and Gilbert. However, I wanted to also recognize a new to me couple because Gilbert and Anne have been with me for years and years, and so the new to me couple that I chose was Zot and Jenny from the comic Zot by Scott McCloud. Jenny and Zot are super fun because they are literally from 2 different dimensions, and thus their worldview is very different. She's very realist and he is very idealistic, and it's very fun to just kind of watch their characters interact. But also, I think they're the epitome of cute teen relationships, and so thus I have to pick them for cuteness factor. And number 10 is Biggest Heartbreaker, the book that just broke your heart. For this, I had to go with In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. This is a true crime story that centers around a crime that happened in a small town where 2 men basically entered this farm family's home and murdered the 4 members of the family that were in the house. By the subject matter, you can kind of already tell that it's heartbreaking just because of the actual event. I didn't cry or anything while reading this book. I wasn't sitting there sobbing, but it is definitely a book that will probably stick with me just in terms of how the book really does show the ripple effect of every little event that led up to what happened to every person in this book, and it is just really like sad that this whole situation even happened and that it's like a real situation. It's not fiction. So that is the year-end book superlative tag. I'm gonna tag whoever wants to do this tag. If you do the tag, let me know so I can check your video out, because I want to hear your guys' answers to these questions as well. Thank you all for watching. Bye!